front or rear brake on your motorcycle, or both? We've talked about this before, but there still seems to be some confusion on it, so I thought we'd discuss it again this week on MCrider. It's common that riders use the wrong brake at the wrong time, and it contributes to unnecessary crashes on the road, drop motorcycles, and it lessens the rider's ability to control their motorcycle. So this week, let's talk about it. Using the front and the rear brake is our default option. Need to make an emergency stop? Front and rear brake. Need to stop at a stop sign? Front and rear brake. Need to slow down as you approach a curve? Front and rear brake. There are a couple of primary reasons for using the front and rear brake as our default application of the brakes. First, it provides the most stopping power for the motorcycle. Using the front and rear brake to the threshold of traction can be the difference between hitting the car and stopping short of the car. Many riders, particularly old school riders, because it used to be taught to stay away from the front brake, will stomp on the rear brake when they need to stop quickly. This can cause a motorcycle to go into a slide as the rear end of the bike comes around, and it's also the least effective way to stop a motorcycle quickly. When you're stopping, that weight shifts towards the front of the motorcycle, giving more stopping power to the front tire and less to the rear. This also makes it easier to lock the rear tire up due to this shift in weight. Depending on the motorcycle you ride, your front brake will provide anywhere from 70 to 90% of your total stopping power. Sport bikes are going to get a little more from the front and less from the rear. Cruisers are a little more evenly distributed, but still it's going to fall in that 70 to 90% range stopping power using the front brake. But I also don't want to give up 10 to 30% of my stopping power if I need to stop to keep from hitting a car. If you use just the front brake, which I hear some of you saying, you've increased your stopping distance by 10 to 30%, and that's pretty huge when you need to stop a motorcycle quickly. So in emergencies, using the front and the rear brake will provide the most stopping power. You might say, I've got linked brakes, so I don't really need to worry about this, but not every motorcycle has linked brakes, and the application of how that motorcycle applies the linking of the brakes is different from one system to the next. So you'll always be better off in using both brakes to stop. When you trade in your current motorcycle for something without linked brakes or a different application of how the link brakes are applied, you already have that habit built in. But here's the second reason why I believe both brakes are the default stopping method. I mentioned using both brakes at stop signs and slowing down on the road. You might say, I don't need 100% of stopping power at a stop sign, so I don't use both brakes for normal stops. But in an emergency, you'll react the way you practice and the way you ride on a regular basis. So if you're in the habit of using both brakes to slow down or come to a stop at a red light, you're more likely to do the same thing when you need to stop quickly. Or if you're in the habit of just using the rear brake when you pull up to a stop sign, you're likely to do that also in an emergency, and you're giving up the vast majority of your braking distance when you do so. Regular practice builds muscle memory, and muscle memory goes a long way to predict what you will do in an actual emergency. One scenario where you might just use the front brake by itself is when you're trail braking into a corner. Now, I'm not going to go into the details on trail braking in this video. If you're not familiar with the technique of trail braking, just search YouTube for MCrider trail brake, and you'll find several videos on this subject that I've done in the past. But one of the purposes of trail braking is to shift weight to the front tire to increase cornering traction. This is best achieved using the front brake. So if I'm approaching a corner where I want to trail brake, I'll do the majority of my slowing with the front and the rear brake while the motorcycle is still straight up and down. Then I'll release the rear brake and maintain slight pressure on the front brake into the corner, eventually trailing off front brake in exchange for lean angle. Again, if you're not familiar with the subject of trail braking, search MCrider trail brake on YouTube, and I've got videos that can help with that. So let's talk about just using the rear brake. Using slight pressure or dragging the rear brake is like a secret magic trick to provide balance and control during slow maneuvers. I see a lot of riders trying to do it strictly with the throttle, but if you can drag that rear brake, so slight pressure on that rear brake, not a whole lot of pressure, just slight pressure, it's called dragging that rear brake. It's going to help you make U-turns in more control. It's going to help you riding slowly in a straight line by dragging the rear brake. You want to stop at a stop sign or a red light and better balance and control. You can begin the stop using both brakes, and then for the final 5 to 10 miles per hour, try using only the rear brake and see how much better in control and balance your motorcycle stops. Using the front brake at slow speeds, especially if the handlebars are turned, is the quickest way I know of to drop a motorcycle. So the front brake's got the most stopping power, and the rear brake adds control and balance at slow speeds. Hopefully this provides some clarification on the subject. If you have any questions, the best place I know of on the internet to get sound riding advice is on the MCrider forums. Every member of MCrider gets access to the forums with riders from all over the world who share their knowledge, and there are several professional riding instructors on the forums also, and they're there and are eager to help. You'll also get access to the field guide with training exercises to practice your skills on any open parking lot, and then if you got questions about the exercises, head over to the forums, and there's a lot of riders be willing to help you out. Get all the details on membership and help support my effort here on MCrider at mcrider.com/member. You can see all the membership options there. Till next week, guys, it's Kevin with MCrider, and I'll see you on the road.